Hello, welcome to Gagru.net. My name is Wally Sarkisian with our friend Harut Sassounian. He's a journalist, publisher, writer, doing it all his adult life serving Armenian cause. So today we have a couple of subjects we want to talk. Garo Paylan is campaigning in Armenia. Paylan. And then Sochi, the summit, Pashinyan, Aliyev, and Putin. And then we'll talk about the fake diaspora that Pashinyan created, and some Armenians saying why everybody didn't go there. So there we go. Harut, welcome.
Thank you, Wally. It's a pleasure being with you again.
Okay. So let's start with Garo Paylan. And he's in Armenia, and he's going around campaigning for, I would say, for Pashinyan. And so he's meeting the former first president, and he's meeting second and current. And so he's making, I don't know what he's talking about them, but obviously we know he's sort of campaigning for Pashinyan. So I have a small video that when he came to Los Angeles, he was talking about how he approached the Turkish government because, you know, he's member of parliament. He is not allowed to go to Armenia because they don't have a relationship. And so I'll run the video, you hear it, and then we'll come show some other stuff, what he's saying. Here is the video.
But the purpose of my visit was, I spoke to my government, Turkey's government, that I will go to Armenia. And I am a member of the Turkish parliament, but there is no ties between Turkey and Armenia, and I will try to establish that. I will try to offer to the Armenian ministers and president to again have a relation between Turkey and Armenia. And I took those messages from our Secretary of State and some ministers as well, and went to Armenia to ask for them again, are you ready for relations? But Armenia is no longer 2009 Armenia. Armenia is more confident. That's why I'm very happy. And Armenia is stronger, and Armenia and Turkey is weaker, unfortunately, because a democratic Turkey was stronger. Armenia is on a very good way, I can say. Of course, there are several problems. I can say hundreds of problems about Armenia, of course. But Armenia is going up and Turkey is going down. But still, I offer to my government, Turkey is just building a wall around Turkey, and you are just walking in a nationalist way. We have to break this. If we can't break this, Turkey will be a Turkish state, and the Kurds are going to establish their countries, and Armenia is going to be a nationalist Armenia, Turkey is going to be a nationalist Turkey, the Kurds are going to be a nationalist Kurds. It is no good for all the Middle East. So we need to break this vicious circle, and if we can't break this, it can establish an earthquake for all the region, and it will be no good for Turkey, Kurdistan, or Armenia, which is our common land. So I went to Armenia to tell about those concerns, and they said we are somehow ready again to negotiate. And when I turned back to Turkey, I told about these things to the Secretary of State, and they will just try to find a way. And I said, I am ready to take responsibility to establish the relations.
It just happens that...
So there you go. So this is Turkish stuff been working out for years now. So now he's one hand saying Turkey is bad and not good, not democracy, but saying Armenia is good to have a relationship with Turkey. Your take?
Well, I have several important points to make about what he just said and what he's doing now. First of all, no one has asked him to do anything. This is a self-appointed responsibility that he put on himself to give importance to himself. On one hand, I think very highly of him. He's very brave to get up in the Turkish parliament, talk about the genocide, talk about various Armenian issues, and the Turkish nationalists hate him with a passion. So he deserves our respect for that. I don't want to badmouth him. So he's brave, he's taking a risk with his life. And just as we saw, a Turkish nationalist, fanatic Turk, killed Hrant Dink in front of his newspaper office in Istanbul years ago. And Garo Paylan runs a similar risk when he talks about Armenian issues. Now, regarding the Turkey and Armenia opening the border, that doesn't take much courage for him to talk about this, because right now, all of the political parties in Turkey, the government party, the ruling party, and the opposition parties, every one of them, they support Turkish government's attempts to open the border and sit down and negotiate with Armenia. So that doesn't take any bold and brave position to do that. He's just trying to ingratiate himself to the Turkish leaders after saying a lot of things that they don't like. Now he wants to say some things, and it's very smart of him. He's a smart guy. Now, that video that you showed, that was probably 2019 when Pashinyan had just come to power. And at that time he was saying Armenia is strong. Well, he's saying the same thing now. He was in Armenia this week, and I watched his interviews. But what the mistake he's making is that Armenia is no longer strong after its devastating defeat it suffered in 2020 war. So whereas in the past Armenia was negotiating from a position of strength, right now Armenia is negotiating from a position of weakness. That's the first comment I have. The second comment I have no problem of Armenians and Turks sitting down and discussing all the various issues they have among them. That's not the problem. There's a more serious problem, which is on the Armenian side, who is doing the negotiating? If we had a competent, knowledgeable Armenian who knows how to deal with the Turkish wolves, who are very cunning, they have 600 years of experience in international politics, and our government in Armenia does not have any experience. On top of that, Armenia appointed Rupen Rupenyan, who is the vice speaker of the Armenian parliament, who knows nothing about diplomacy. He's never worked at the foreign ministry of Armenia. And he's sitting and negotiating for months now with Serdar Kilic, a very prominent Turkish diplomat. He used to be Turkey's ambassador in Washington, and he held several other ambassadorial posts in other countries. So Serdar Kilic is a very shrewd, cunning diplomat. He has more years of experience in diplomacy than Rupen Rupenyan's entire age. He was a young man. So we have two people. One has no knowledge, no experience, the Armenian side, and the Turkish side, very knowledgeable and experienced. It's like putting a sheep in front of the wolf and hoping that the sheep will get something out of the deal. That's a no-brainer. We know what the outcome will be. The sheep will be eaten alive by the wolf. So that's the problem. Garo Paylan doesn't seem to understand the simple fact that Armenia does not have a knowledgeable negotiator who can sit down. If Armenia were to sit down with Turkish representatives and get something to the benefit of Armenia, I would be all for it. But how can they do that when they don't know what they're doing? And all of their appointments are like that. Pashinyan's appointments, they're all incompetent, inexperienced people, don't know what they're doing. The only thing Pashinyan looks for is somebody from his party, from his close circle, somebody who's loyal to him. So he values loyalty much more than expertise or experience. So he's not looking for competent people to appoint. And he appoints incompetent people everywhere, whether they're ambassadors, ministers, deputy ministers, or parliament leaders. And what makes it worse is he does not consult anybody. Even if there was one guy who, by mistake in his circle, is about to give him some wise counsel, he dismisses it, doesn't listen to anybody. He thinks he knows everything. I wish he did. Would have been in better shape if he knew anything about what he's doing. But he doesn't, and doesn't listen either. So he doesn't know, and he doesn't want to learn. And that's the worst combination.
Here is some stuff was on Twitter, and so it was in Armenian. And I asked the guy who was publishing, I said, can you translate? So I don't know how. This is, again, it's 2019. So he respectfully remember the hundreds of Azerbaijani who were killed in things. I mean, I don't want to read the whole things, but what do you think about this?
Well, this is another major mistake on Garo Paylan's part. He's equating the massacre of Armenians in Sumgait, which is very well known around the world, and he's equating that to the killing of some Azeris during the war in Khojalu. And of course, Azeris make a big deal out of this. They even call it genocide, which is far from that. It's not genocide. It's not even a massacre. Some people were killed in the crossfire between Armenians and Azeris during the war. It's unfortunate. We're not happy with that. But you cannot equate Sumgait with Khojalu. That is what Azeris and Turks would like to.
But why say that? I mean, I don't understand this. He's trying to be...
He's trying to be like he's very fair-minded. He's not just a nationalist Armenian. He's a good Turkish citizen. He cares about Armenians, Turks, and Azeris. He wants the best for everybody, no matter who they are. It's a very nice-sounding, well-intentioned thing, but the facts get lost in the middle of that.
His mentality is exactly like Pashinyan, because I remember even in Los Angeles when he came, he was saying, "Oh, when Turkey become a democracy, everything will be great." But he forgot when was last time Turkey was democracy, and which country that around Turkey they have peaceful situation. You know, like those people, they're just dreaming.
Well, I have the perfect answer to Garo Paylan about a democratic Turkey would recognize the Armenian genocide. That's what he keeps saying. He said it again this week. He said in the past. I have the perfect answer to that. Turkey is the one that committed the genocide, that does not want to recognize because they're too proud of their past, and they don't want to be known that their grandparents were mass murderers. And they also fear about the consequences of recognizing the genocide. in terms of
Yeah.
the lands and money that Armenians would want. But let me say something that's really completely blows Garo Paylan's argument out of the water. So Turkey is not recognizing genocide, and when Garo says when they're democratic, they will, and they're the ones who committed the genocide. So let's put that aside for a second. Let's take another example. United Kingdom. Is there any doubt in anybody's mind that United Kingdom is a democratic country? No. It's one of the most democratic countries in the world, whether we like it or not. They're a democratic country. Now, United Kingdom, so far, after 107 years, has not recognized Armenian genocide. Now, and they're not the ones who committed the genocide. They're just outside observers. At the time, there were many books written, statements made about the Armenian genocide. Winston Churchill talked about the Armenian Holocaust in his book. So if a country that's democratic for centuries and has not committed the genocide itself, does not want to recognize genocide, how does Garo think that Turkey, that committed the genocide, that if it becomes democratic, it's going to recognize it? It's just complete nonsense.
Well, even Israel, same situation. Israel is supposed to be democratic. They don't recognize.
Yeah, but if I give the example of Israel, then you get involved in all sorts of other issues, the Palestinian issue and the various things. But with England, there's no other issues. They're just a democratic country for centuries. There's no question about it. So if a democratic Turkey is going to recognize genocide, why hasn't democratic England, that has not committed the genocide, refuses to recognize?
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with democracy. If tomorrow a miracle happens and Turkey turns into one of the most democratic countries in the world, which is not going to, but if it did, I bet you Turkish leader is not going to recognize genocide, no matter how democratic they are.
Yeah.
Because that leader will be toppled the next morning, if not killed.
Yes.
Most probably killed. So this whole thing is very naive. I mean, Garo Paylan is a very nice guy. I like him. He's very brave to be in the middle of hundreds of nationalist Turkish parliamentarians to get up and have the boldness to speak out about these things. But I believe that he's very nice guy. He's very naive about the things he says. He talks about apple pie and motherhood, and he talks about peace. The two countries should have peace, should have peaceful relations. Yeah, but those are all good ideas, but in the real world, it's far from reality. He has to, like the Americans say, wake up and smell the roses. And he's in a different planet from the reality, because Armenian negotiators are not competent to get anything in favor of Armenia out of the negotiation.
All this meeting they go. I just want to one time that idiot Pashinyan come, call press conference, says, aha, I negotiated this good deal for Armenia. Nothing. Every time he come with full hand of concession. You know, you're absolutely right. Those people have no clue what negotiation even is. So
that's the sad part. If they knew they were competent and Armenia would benefit from sitting down with anybody, I would be all in favor, because we're not opposed to Armenia just because we're criticizing Pashinyan. Those are two different things. Armenia is the homeland of every Armenian. And no matter whether you're critical or you're on Pashinyan's side, Armenia is the homeland of all of us, and we want nothing but the success of Armenia, because we want our people to have a good life.
Well, what kind of homeland is he banned people going in that homeland?
Well, that's another serious mistake Pashinyan is making on the top of the thousands of other mistakes. He's acting like Armenia is his private home, that he has locked the door, and anybody who comes and try to get in, he looks through the peephole, and if he doesn't like them, he doesn't let them in his house.
Yeah.
That he can do. That he can do.
That's exactly
His
what
house.
he's doing.
And if he doesn't like somebody, he keeps the door shut.
Yeah.
Now, he's confusing that with Armenia. Armenia is not his private house. Armenia is the homeland of all Armenians, all 10 million Armenians worldwide. So whether we are Pashinyan's side or whether we're opposed to him, we all have the right to go and visit our homeland. Except if somebody on the outside has committed a crime and is a danger to Armenian society. But the people that he has banned from entering Armenia have not committed any crime. They just verbally have expressed their disagreement with his policies.
Yeah.
And every week that passes, more and more names are being added to the list, to the blacklist of Armenians who cannot go to Armenia. And last week we saw something even more amazing. One of the prominent members of the Russian Duma or parliament, Sassounian, he was banned from entering Armenia because he gave an interview blaming Pashinyan for the corridor or something. Now, Pashinyan didn't like that, and we understand that he wouldn't like it. And Sassounian is a man who has been in favor of Armenians and Armenian interests for decades. So someone like that you can't ban. What's even worse is who has done the banning. The banning letter or email was sent by the Speaker of the Armenian Parliament, Alan Simonian. Now, can anyone explain to me what Speaker of Parliament, what right does he have to ban anybody from entering Armenia? He is neither the national security chief, nor the prime minister, nor the president. He just wrote an email saying you can no longer enter Armenia. I didn't even hear a bill in Parliament by a majority vote, a discussion and a vote, saying let's ban, if the Parliament can ban somebody from entering Armenia. I'm not sure about that, but even if they could, there should be a bill. And there should be a discussion and a vote, and by majority vote, and then maybe they can send a letter like that. But you can't have every official in Armenia have their own favorite list of who they're going to ban from entering Armenia. Tomorrow, one of the ministers can send a letter to somebody in diaspora saying, you're criticizing Pashinyan, so I ban you. This is turning into I'm sorry to say, it's our homeland. I don't want to say anything negative, but it's turning into a banana republic where anything goes. Where we can't, and then they keep proudly talking about that this is a democracy. What kind of a democracy is this when any official can ban anybody they want without any governmental decision, being the right official who has the authority to take such action?
Yeah. All right. So the last thing I'm going to say about Garo Paylan.
Right.
I believe the Turks are you know that. They're very diplomatic. The reason Garo is not in jail with his party, because every single, the Kurdish party, KDP, they're all in jail. And there is about 9,000 Kurds in jail. And Garo is saying all this stuff in parliament. I think I believe there is a reason they are keeping it for this Armenia diplomatic things, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, we don't know. We need to know some facts, but here's one fact I know, that in recent years, Erdogan has given orders to strip several dozens of members of parliament.
Right.
And many of them belong to the Kurdish party, but some who belong to the opposition. He has stripped them of their parliamentary immunity, and he has had them arrested and tried and jailed. And for several years now, we hear that Garo Paylan is on the list of deputies to be charged, to be stripped of his parliamentary immunity. But after hearing it for several years, it has never happened. So that's a proper question to ask, but I cannot reach any conclusion without having any facts.
Right,
I just hope for the sake of Garo that he's doing this out of being a naive and honest and a well-intentioned man, and not being used as a tool by the Turkish government for their own purposes.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's move on. So we don't want to talk about that Babajian guy. So let's go to Sochi in Russia, the summit.
Sochi.
Sochi. Sochi.
Right.
Now from Armenian to Russian to English.
Okay, so this week on Monday, there was a high-level meeting between three heads of state: Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia, President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan, and President Putin of Russia. And they've met, the three of them have met before. So it's important to give the background and the context of this meeting before we go into the heart of the meeting. Recently, last few days before the meeting, there was a lot of very heated conversation, both in the United States. The White House spokesman commented on it. President Putin commented. A lot of people in Armenia and Turkey commented, and Azerbaijan. They all said the following things. They said there are two separate proposals on the table how to resolve the Armenia-Azerbaijan issue. There's the Western or the U.S. Proposal, and then there's the Russian proposal. Now, Putin spoke about this at a major meeting, and he said that the Western proposal talks about Artsakh or Karabakh being a territory within the Republic of Azerbaijan, and Armenians living there as a minority. And now Putin did not say that I'm opposed to that, but he said the U.S. is willing to give Karabakh away to Azerbaijan. And he implied that he's much more delicate about this whole Karabakh controversy, that he's willing to see what demands Armenians have, to discuss it with them, without saying what he would do. That's different from the American proposal. And then Putin added, now he said, if Armenians want to go with the U.S. proposal, I have no problem. That's their decision. I will accept whatever they decide. But obviously, and then the next day after Putin said that, Pashinyan made an announcement saying, I go with the Russian proposal. So, and before the meeting. And then there was a massive protest in Stepanakert in Karabakh or Artsakh. 40,000 Armenians and three current and former presidents of Artsakh were there, spoke at the gathering. It was a huge rally, and they all said the same thing. And the Artsakh parliament passed a unanimous decision saying that Artsakh Armenians reject any thought of living under Azeri rule, that they will not compromise their freedom, their Armenianness, their territorial integrity. And they're very nervous because they keep hearing, not only from outside of Armenia, not only from Azerbaijan and Turkey, that Artsakh is part of Armenia, but they're hearing this from Armenia's leaders themselves. And the Pashinyan himself months ago said, international powers are telling us to lower the bar on our demands for Artsakh. And then he added at different times, he said, Artsakh for us is not a territorial issue, it's a matter of human rights. In other words, in plain English, he's saying, if Artsakh becomes part of Azerbaijan, that's not a problem for Pashinyan. All he wants to do is he wants to see if he can arrange so that Artsakh Armenians will have certain freedoms as minorities, like to protect their religion, to speak their Armenian language, and whatever rights they have as Armenians and living in Artsakh, freedom of worship and freedom of expression, etc. Which means that Pashinyan already has decided that Artsakh has to be returned to Azerbaijan as part of Azerbaijan, and he's just trying to secure some rights, human rights for Artsakh Armenians, which Artsakh Armenians don't want to hear anything about, because they know there's no such thing as protecting Armenian rights of Artsakh people living under Azerbaijan. They will be all wiped out in 24 hours. And they know that. It's very clear. Anybody who knows anything about Azeri behavior in the past and 2020 and the September 13 war 2 months ago, we know how they behave very barbarically against Armenians. And so that to speak about Armenian rights within Azerbaijan is very foolish, childish. It's a defeatist attitude. But Pashinyan is all of these things. That's why when he lost the war in 2020, many of us called for his immediate resignation, because we said a defeated, devastated prime minister cannot continue in his seat as the ruler of the country, because he's not morally strong to be able to withstand all the pressure on him, because he's being crushed. Usually in any country, when a leader suffers a devastating defeat like this, he resigns the same day, or we don't want to say this, and we don't want to do this, but some of them commit suicide. But we don't want any ill to any fellow Armenian, no matter who they are. He should just resign, saying, this isn't my business. I tried, I couldn't do it. I wanted to do something, but it didn't work out. I pick up my jacket, go home, and let the next guy come and see what he can rescue from the terrible situation Armenia and Artsakh are in. So,
well, you know, England, the third prime minister, you know, the first one was just because energy problem. You know, he resigned. The other one resigned. In Armenia, it's now full-fledged, exactly like Azerbaijan. The police, the way they behave, the government, banning people, it's exactly like same copycat of Azerbaijan and Turkey. They spend millions on the police. And now, yesterday, when I was talking with Papian, he says people are now scared because, number one, they lose their job. Number two is they throw them in jail, and there is nobody can do nothing. So really, right now, Armenia is absolutely no different than the Azerbaijan. It's a brutal system.
Well, coming back to the Sochi conference, so what happened on Monday, Putin met separately with Pashinyan and separately with Aliyev, and then he met with both of them together. And then they issued a one-page statement, full-page statement, which I read, and all three of them signed that statement. The statement said nothing new. They didn't solve a single thing. Pashinyan was not able to bring a single prisoner of war back from Baku. They've been sitting there for over 2 years. Pashinyan was not able to liberate a single inch of Armenian territory that Azeris conquered, not only in September, but on May 12, 2021, they entered Armenia's borders. The word Garo, it doesn't even appear in the document. So there was no progress there. So they just talked about generalities, that we want peace. We want the terms that we agreed in November 2020 to be applied on both sides. So they were just generalities. And there's one important indication that if you watch carefully, you will notice Putin said that there were some things that the two sides could not agree on. That's why it's not in the document. And they ask him, what are these things? And he says, well, I don't want to disclose the disagreement. I leave it to two leaders to talk about it if they want, but I haven't checked with them if I can say it publicly. Well, obviously, one of them is the status of Artsakh or Qarabakh.
Yeah.
And even worse, there's several references in the media that says that before the meeting they had prepared a draft of an agreement that the three will sign. So they do this. This is a common practice. They prepare the draft in anticipation of the meeting, and then if they agree on the draft, they will sign it. But after the meeting, when they looked at the draft, there were several points that they disagreed, Aliyev and Pashinyan. So they removed those contentious points from the document. One of them is the status of Artsakh. So they basically went to Sochi. Neither Aliyev nor Pashinyan came away with winning any points for themselves.
I called it caviar meeting.
Right. But there was one winner at the meeting, and that was Putin. Because Putin was getting very anxious recently, seeing that the EU, Europeans, and the United States have become very active in meeting with Aliyev and Pashinyan, calling them. Jean-Michel in EU president meeting with Aliyev and Pashinyan repeatedly. So Putin was concerned that he's losing the initiative, he's losing his mediation efforts to the Europeans and Americans, to the West. And as you know, because of the Ukraine war, there's a huge antagonism between Russia and the West. So Putin is not about to lose one more point to the West. So he called both of them in, Aliyev and Pashinyan, to Sochi, and he acted like he's the big guy, that he's mediating between the two and settling. So they came and they sat in front of him, and they listened to his comments, general comments, and then they went home, and nothing got solved. But the only thing that happened, Putin once again came into the driver's seat. He acted like he was the big Russian leader that's mediating between two former Soviet republics, that they're listening to his instructions, and they're abiding by it. Putin, in fact, himself said, make it very openly known, he said, I appreciate that both Armenian and Azerbaijani leaders, they thanked Russia for its good faith mediating efforts. So Putin is the only one who got something out of the meeting to strengthen or to boost his prestige, his power as the big shot that has something important to say, especially at a time when the West is encroaching on his zone of influence, and they're making him look weaker and weaker because of the Ukraine war. So he had to reestablish his power, his influence once again. So the meeting, the two, Armenia and Azerbaijan, didn't get anything out of the meeting, but Russia did.
All right. So let's move on to, thanks for explaining that. So let's move on to the fake diaspora Pashinyan is creating, and because I believe this is the pressure from Turkey. You want us to isolate the diaspora from Armenia, but this is in a way. But some people, like today, it was like in Facebook, I saw it, this guy Garabet Mamoujian. He was a couple of times on here. Mumjian. He was saying it's wrong. All diaspora should have gone there. that was the stage that would ask question things. Ask question who? Pashinyan just came and gave his lecture and he left. But anyway, what are your thoughts? Because you wrote an article on this.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot to say about this. We can spend the entire hour or several hours just on this subject, but we'll make it short. First of all those people who say that Diaspora Armenia should have gone to the conference, well, did we receive an invitation to go?
Yeah.
We can't invite ourselves. We were not even invited. It's not that we were invited and we rejected the invitation, which was a big mistake on the Armenian among the many mistakes the Armenian government made. This was one of them, that even if you disagree with the policies of Pashinyan, and even if Pashinyan and Garo Paylan think that you're gonna reject the invitation, more reason for the Armenian government to invite you. And then if you don't go, you're the one who looks bad. You look bad that you rejected a good faith Armenian invitation. But the fact is that many of us who've spent our entire life as diaspora activists, we know diaspora inside out, we were not even invited. Why? For the same reason why the Pashinyan turns back from Yerevan airport those who disagree with him. And you see all the empty chairs at the conference. They keep saying we invited 600 people. Well, maybe they did invite 600 people, but how many people did travel to Armenia and show up? It looks like much less than 600. I don't know how many, maybe a couple of hundred. So we were not invited, so no one can criticize us for not going because we were not invited to go. And it's a shame. The government, again, made the wrong choice, wrong decision. They didn't invite. And I know a lot of people who were not invited that should have been invited, and they were invited in the past. Now, there was also a lot of confusion about a lot of Armenian organizations were not invited, so they were very critical. But only 2 days before the conference, Sinanian gave an interview, and I watched it. In the interview, he said, we have not invited any Armenian organization from any side. We just invited individuals.
Yeah.
Okay. So if he had said that a month ago, that would have solved a lot of the criticism of organizations who've gone to all the various previous Armenian diaspora conferences. And this time they were not invited, and they were not even told that they're not invited because they're not inviting organizations. On top of that, both Gatologoses, Karekin Gatologos of all Armenians and Aram Gatologos of the Great House of Cilicia, both of them issued an announcement saying that they refused to go. They were invited, but they refused to go. They both said that they were not consulted on the agenda, so they didn't have any input. And Aram Gatologos said that he doesn't find the timing, the right timing for such a meeting when there's so many crises in Armenia. And that's his opinion. So they didn't go. Organizations were not asked to go. A lot of individuals did not go. In the past, when there were Diaspora Armenia conferences, there were like 1,500 to 2,000 Armenians there from all over the world.
Yeah.
And they invited everybody from all sides, even those that criticized the government, they were invited.
Yeah.
And now we're supposed to have a democratic country that if you disagree with the leader, you're on the blacklist and you're not invited to anything. And they send you back if you come. So
maybe if me and you we went, probably we'd be sent us back.
Well, we don't know because the government's blacklist is a secret.
Yeah.
They don't disclose whose name is on it. The only time you find out if your name is on it when you arrive after a 17-hour flight to Yerevan airport.
Yeah.
They make you wait 2-3 hours, and then they put you on a flight back in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours.
In Yerevan airport, you don't have flights that you could jump into, so you just have to sleep in there on the floor until next day you find a flight.
And then fly back 17 or more hours back.
Yeah.
Which is not the best way of visiting your homeland. It's very sad, and a lot of people are asking me if my name is on the list. I said I have no idea. I hope not. It would be very hurtful, painful, if we are banned from entering Armenia after dreaming about our homeland, Armenian independence for all our lives.
Well, they did for Papazian. I mean, the guy was all his life, just like you. He was working for Armenian cause. You know, what people don't understand in Armenia, all those people in diaspora like Nancy Pelosi, he didn't go there because of Pashinyan. He went in there because of diaspora Armenia. Same thing in Paris. They're taking care of Pashinyan or inviting him. It's all because the 500,000 Armenian in Paris, in France. You know, but they just think it's because of Pashinyan all this crap happening. You know, they don't know you guys.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Wally, because, for example, Nancy Pelosi, we have been meeting and lobbying and briefing Nancy Pelosi for, I don't know, several decades. She knows Armenian Americans, she knows of Armenia through us. You know, otherwise, Nancy Pelosi maybe would not have heard of Armenia at all, let alone go there. So, because we are U.S. citizens and French Armenians are citizens of France, so the leaders in U.S. and France, they cater to their citizens. Their citizens who can vote for them are much more important than some foreign country that they barely know anything about.
Yeah, it's the thing is about Armenia. They just think, oh, French president invited Pashinyan. They think, oh, they have so much good relationship. It's not. It's because of the Armenian in France. It's because of Armenian in Los Angeles, in Boston, in Australia. But for them is no, it's Armenian government. Nobody knows about Armenia.
Well, the reason we have worked all of our lives to lobby for the Armenian cause in Armenia, so that these countries would have good relations with Armenia. We try to promote the good relations.
Yeah.
But and then we become the bad guy, then we get on the blacklist. Now, let me say something that's not talked about very often. Both in the case of Murat Papazian from Paris and in the case of the two Armenians from Holland who were also turned back a month ago from the airport, father and daughter, and they're Armenian cause activists from Holland. All three of them have now hired attorneys in Armenia to file a lawsuit against the Armenian government, because the government initially said nothing about why they were being turned back. They kept asking, why are we not allowed to enter Armenia? They wouldn't say anything. They would say it's secret. When the press asked Armenian officials, why didn't you let them? They go, oh, it's a privacy matter. We don't want to encroach on their privacy and disclose something private. Well, that lasted only for a couple of days. Then they turned around and said the exact opposite. They said, oh, Papazian was part of a protest in Paris when Pashinyan was there. And Papazian said, no, I was not there. I didn't know anything about the protest. So these people were completely innocent. But Papazian, of course, criticizes Pashinyan, and so do probably the two people in Holland. So now all three of them have hired Armenian attorneys in Armenia to file a lawsuit against the Armenian government. And in the lawsuit, they're going to ask, why did you ban us from entering Armenia? And if the government lawyer would say, because you did something wrong, they'll say, no, we did not. Where's your evidence? Which reminds me, the Armenian government said, oh, yeah, we have a lot of pictures, we have a lot of video showing that these people were protesting, demonstrating against Pashinyan. So Murat asked, if you have a lot of pictures, a lot of video, can you show us one of them? One picture, one video, nothing. You would think that if they have evidence of them being guilty of some kind of a protest against Pashinyan, they would gladly the same day show that to the whole world to prove that they're right. But a couple of months have passed, nothing. So let me continue with the lawsuit. So the lawsuit is filed. That will take some time. And there's two possible outcomes, like every lawsuit. Either they're going to find them innocent and the judge is gonna order the government to remove them from the blacklist and allow them to enter,
and
which
pay,
also
and then have to pay for their tickets.
yeah. But as an aside, and I'll come back to the trial in a second. After Pashinyan went to Paris and they're accusing Murat Papazian of creating a scene protesting against Pashinyan's car, after that date, Murat Papazian visited Armenia 3 different times.
Yeah.
If Murat Papazian did those things and they have pictures and videos, why did they not ban him on the first visit or the second or the third? They only banned him on the 4th visit. So that shows that there's a serious problem here. Coming back to the trial, so either Papazian and the others would be found not guilty of anything, and government ordered to remove them from the blacklist, or, which will not surprise anybody, the judge, knowing what the government wants, it's always been like that in Armenia, they're going to rule that the government did the right thing, even if there's no evidence for it, but they're going to rule the right thing. Now, most people who don't know the whole story, they think, well, that's the end of the story. No, that's not the end of the story. That's just the beginning of the story. Because what will happen next, Papazian and this couple in Holland, they're going to apply to the European Court of Human Rights and sue Armenia in the European Court of Human Rights for violating their human rights. And the prerequisite of the European Court to file a lawsuit there is first you have to go to the local country courts, like in Armenia, have your trial there, and then if you lose there, only then you can come back to the European Court. That's exactly what Papazian and the couple in Holland are doing. They're suing in Armenia, and when they exhaust the local courts, then they will turn to the European Court. My guess is, it remains to be seen, my guess is the European Court is going to find Armenia guilty, and when the court finds a country guilty of violating the human rights of the European Court, the European Council, which Armenia has signed and agreed to abide by, not only it's embarrassing that Armenia will be found guilty, but the court also puts a penalty, financial penalty on the country, like they have to pay legal fees and some other compensation for the trouble they went through, maybe their tickets and other things. So we shall see in the next few months, after Armenian court makes its decision. If they decide that no, the government did not do anything wrong, they go to the European Court, and then Armenia will be found guilty, and that's very embarrassing for all Armenians, not just the government. We will all be embarrassed that Armenia found as a violator of human rights.
Yeah. Wow. So we covered lots today, We started with Garo, and then, Babajian, he didn't want to talk because Babajian he came to Los Angeles with some Pashinyan people, give lecture. He met Vigen Hovsepian. I assume he's a ranking member of Tashnak, and also he's going to Washington, D.C. Apparently, I'm not 100% sure, but it's supposed to investigate Vigen Sarkisyan, the former president, defense minister, how did he got the $2 million buy a house. So anyway, that's another subject. Maybe you could work on it and then we could talk about it. So we talked about the fake diaspora, Sochi, and so it's plenty of stuff in here. And we really thank you, Harut. And if you have something to say before I close the show.
I just want to end with a light note, because we talk so much about serious things. Once in a while, we need a little humor and a little laughter. It's good for our hearts. So Sinanian has called the conference Global Armenian Summit. Yeah. The first letters are GAS, gas. So it's a lot of gas. that Sinanian has released. And let's hope for the best. I don't begrudge the people who went. I'm sure many of them were good Armenians with a good heart, good intentions. They went to Armenia because they want to see if there's any way they can be helpful. So that's fine with me. Maybe I would have gone if I was invited. I was not. So now the meeting lasted a little over 3 days. Sinanian says that he's going to summarize the key conclusions of the conference and then use the decisions flowing from the conference in a strategy of the Armenian government of how to work with diaspora. We'll see if and when that strategy comes out to see what it says. I have one good idea. If Pashinyan had ever asked my opinion, I would have gladly given him this good suggestion, but he did not, so I could not give him my suggestion. It would have been an incredible statement on behalf of Pashinyan when he made the opening remarks for the conference 3-4 days ago. If you had said, on this occasion, dear diaspora Armenians, I would like to announce that we're changing our laws that from now on will allow expert, experienced, knowledgeable diaspora Armenians to come and assume high-ranking positions in the Armenian government. So you can help us, because right now the Armenian law does not allow diaspora Armenians to work in high-ranking positions. And for the last 4 years, Pashinyan has repeatedly talked about changing the law, allowing diaspora Armenians to take such positions, but he's never lifted a finger. If he had done that in his opening remarks at the beginning of the conference, that would have been like a bombshell. He would have received a standing ovation, not only by the hundreds of people in the conference, but Armenians worldwide in and out of Armenia.
Yeah.
He didn't do that either.
Do you know anybody went there?
I know some people, 1 or 2 people who were already in Armenia, and they went to the conference. They didn't go from here to the conference; they were already there, and they went. But I looked at the video of a lot of the meetings of the conference. I hardly recognized anybody. That doesn't mean anything. I don't know everybody, and again, I don't have any ill will towards the people who went. They went with the best of intentions. They care about Armenia. They went there. They want to see what's going on. They want to see if they can do anything positive. I wish they could. And if anybody asks for my help, I've always been very helpful to Armenia's leaders for over 30 years, to the Armenia's various ambassadors in the past in Washington. But if they don't want to talk to me, they don't want to invite me, they don't want to ask me, they don't want to work with me, I cannot force them. It's up to them. I'm always ready to help my homeland, no matter who's the leader, because leaders are here today, gone tomorrow. But the homeland is there, hopefully, for centuries to come.
You always do. And everybody appreciate your hard work. And we do here appreciate too. And we're always happy to get your opinion, your input, and all this. And I really thank you very much. I wish you all the best. So please stay for a minute before I close it, and then we'll go. So anyway, for our viewers, thank you for watching. We covered a lot, and as usual, Harut Sassounian full of information, and he does his work. He just doesn't just come and talk. That's why he produce 1 article per week, because he makes sure what he put in there is correct. He does his own research or things. And as always, thank you, Harut, and thank you for our viewer watching, and we'll have more to come. Thank you. Take care. A good night.